this extreme immigration's come up against, as we just mentioned there, collapsing dwelling supply. So Australia, if once you net out demolitions and you actually look at the additions to the housing stock, Australia added only 166,000 homes to the housing stock last calendar year against a population increase of about 660,000 in the year to September. That's the latest official data. So that means we only added one home for every new arrival. The problem with it is the latest trend data on dwelling approvals and commencements from the ABS shows that that we're running at an annualized rate of commencements and approvals of 149,000 dwellings only. So that means that the dwelling construction is going to keep falling. And that 149,000 is 91,000 less than the Labor's target of building 240,000 homes a year. So we're not even close. Like, all the forward-looking data is disastrous. It's showing that construction is going to keep falling. And all that means is that the rental vacancy rate, which is shown in the right-hand side from Domain, but I could have used any of the data providers, or they'll say the same thing, is already at record lows. It's just going to get worse, because so long as they keep running this absolutely extreme immigration into a constipated supply side, we're just going to have more rental tightness and ongoing high rental inflation, more people being forced to live in group housing, more financial stress, more people being made homeless. It's an absolute inequality disaster. And this whole notion, I always see the YIMBY movement and all the usual Muppets trying to say it's a supply issue. Oh, it's a supply issue. It's a supply issue. All this sort of stuff. We all hear it. And they say, oh, Australia just needs to build more homes. Well, how are we going to do that? So I've put three data points here. So on the left-hand side, we've got the number of construction workers per capita in Australia is actually way higher than the OECD average. So our construction workers per capita is, so basically 5% of Australian workers, 5% of Australia's population, 5.2% of Australia's population works in construction. This is all pulled from the OECD. So I got their latest statistics. So Australia's population is actually 27 million currently, but I wanted to use the like-for-like data points from the OECD because they're always like a year or so behind. So that's why it says only 26 million. But regardless, Australia's per capita construction workers are much higher than the OECD average of about 3.3%. The only country that's got slightly higher is New Zealand. The percentage of the workforce working in construction is 9.2%, also at historically high levels. So we've already got a massive amount of people working in construction in Australia. So do these people think we're going to magic? Obviously, these homes need to be built by people. So where are we going to get the construction workers from? Are we going to suddenly have, 14% of workers working in construction? Well, if we do that, where are the nurses going to come from? Where are all the other workers across the economy going to come from? Like, we're going to have to cut back elsewhere, which is going to create problems. So this whole notion that we can just build more homes is ridiculous. And it's also ridiculous because residential construction costs have surged by 30 to 40% over the pandemic, and that's shown on the right-hand side. So, and I should also add that Australian home builders are now competing for labour against the state government big build infrastructure projects. So we've got high interest rates, we've got 30 to 40% increase in construction costs. We've already got one of the highest concentration of workers in the world working in construction. We've got builders going broke left, right, and centre because they can't turn a profit because the costs are so high. How the hell are we going to suddenly magically build more homes and meet Albo's 240,000 homes target? It's just not possible. It's laughable. So the solution, therefore, is we've got to cut immigration. Because if we don't cut immigration, we're going to have this forever massive gap between housing demand and supply, which just means rent's going to keep rising. We're going to have upward pressure on housing prices. And just on the rental thing, the next time someone says to you, oh, I don't know, immigration doesn't impact the rental market. The rental market was rising anyway, and blah, blah, blah. Just show them these charts. So the charts on the left, quarterly asking rents from SQM Research. I could have used any other data provider, but these, were nicely put together by Justin Farbo at Antipodi and Macro. And as you can see, the top left-hand chart there shows the quarterly growth in rents. When immigration turned negative at the start of the pandemic, guess what? Asking rents turned negative. When immigration rebounded and surged, Asking rent surge. Funny that. One-for-one correlation. The middle chart, the top middle chart was put together by Harry Otley at CBA last week, and it's a brilliant chart actually. And what it actually shows is that the rental growth is incredibly highly correlated to the change in the population versus apartment construction. So basically, when apartment construction rises versus population growth, rental growth falls, or when population growth rises relative to apartment construction, rents rise. It's shown very clearly there. And just under that, Harry Otley put together the change in rents across capitals versus the change in population growth. Look at that relationship. Anyone who tells you that immigration is not behind the spike in rents and the rental crisis is a bald-faced liar or an idiot. That's all I can tell you. They're an idiot or they're a liar, because this data comprehensively shows it. And just on that last point, another reason why rent's going to keep rising, aside from the massive population growth, is if you take that upper middle chart from Harry Otley on the rental growth versus apartment construction, well, we've got surging population growth, which is bad, but also the bottom right chart there, on the right-hand side, I've actually plotted apartment approvals, the latest apartment approvals data, high rise and low rise. High-rise apartment approvals are down by about 55% from their peak. They're at absolutely appalling levels. That's the blue line. The red line shows low-rise apartments. They're down 80% from peak. So if we've got record population growth at the same time as apartment construction approvals have absolutely collapsed, pointing to further weakness ahead for apartment construction, what do you think that means for rents based on that upper middle chart? Rents are going to rise, and they're going to rise viciously if that relationship in that chart holds true. So this is an absolute Albo created rental crisis here we've got. He's created this. He deliberately ramped immigration to all-time highs. He used the Jobs and Skills Summit as cover. He lifted the permanent intake to all-time highs. He loosened a whole bunch of regulations for temporary visas like students, etc. He signed 2 migration deals with India to give them easier access to come here. And that is why we have a rental crisis. At the same time as obviously the supply side's constipated as well from all the pandemic stuff. So Albo has literally thrown people on the streets. He's driven up your rents and he's forced people to live in group housing. It is as simple as that. This is an Albo engineered housing crisis that we've got. And it's going to continue until they cut immigration. Simple.